This is the Gauntlet Podcast, episode 87, and I'm Rich.
This is Lowell.
I'm Kate.
My name's Steve.
And I'm Jason.
All right. Thanks, Jason. You brought up the end there like I did. You switched the train around.
I was trying to do my best. Yeah, I was trying to do my best impression of you. But
you were a good engineer.
I think
That's
I failed.
great. Your caboose as, I don't know, brings the boys to the yard or something. So let's talk about games. This is our new cadence. Once a month, we talk about a game that we've played with the Gauntlet community. And we're going to kick off with Steve with this game we haven't talked a whole lot about cheese, Monsterhearts.
Yeah, have you guys heard of this Monsterhearts game? It's brand new.
No, what's that?
Okay, so Monsterhearts has recently been kickstarted, as I'm sure everybody knows already. And there was a trick-or-treat sneak peek preview type of thing that Avery Elder put out somewhere around Halloween, I think. And I think 3 out of the 5 of us, maybe more, are running Monsterhearts games at the moment. Is that right?
Guilty.
Next week. Yep.
Okay, maybe it's 3, all soon to be 4. Yeah. And so I'm 3 sessions into a Monsterhearts game that I am running here. Maybe 2.5. That first one was a lot of character creation and city setup and rules explanation. Because one of the players has never played a role-playing game before, which is exciting.
Wow.
And so I only played a little bit of the first edition of Monsterhearts. I ran a session, played a session, and that was it. The strings have been reworked. The way they function now replaces the manipulate move from first edition. There's no more Chosen, which is the Buffy the Vampire Slayer analog. That's been done away with.
I'm so mad about that.
I'm kind of good with it.
It's my favorite.
Gnashing of teeth.
So I am of sort of two minds about that one. That is like thematically I understand. Because it's like you're sort of being monsters to each other, I think. And Buffy necessarily introduces the big bad. I don't remember what the first edition called it. It sort of moves the focus of the game away from monsters dealing with each other to monsters dealing with that external threat. So thematically I get it, but in practice, I don't know, I kind of miss it. I would like the option at least. Yeah. I like what I'm seeing for the most part of the reworked moves. The turn someone on. I like the addition of the option of an act awkward or act embarrassed option.
Yeah.
Kate, I think I saw that.
Kate doesn't like it.
No,
Yeah.
it has no narrative function.
Right. So you had a suggestion that I liked, actually, Kate.
Well, so Kate, what's your issue with it? I mean,
So I'm playing in a Monsterhearts game as well. I play the Infernal, and the turn someone on move, the last option doesn't have any narrative function. So if you act awkward or strange, the other ones, like you get a promise, or you have sex, or now you're just going to be awkward. Like it doesn't have any punch, whereas everything else in the entire game does. So I felt the act awkward was kind of lame. I felt like it should be like you reveal a secret or you reveal something about yourself in that moment.
Yeah,
so
that's
it still
what it
has
was.
narrative function.
Yeah. No, I like that a lot.
So my opinion is I like it because it's a nice pressure release valve. I think it's also maybe not like you don't give up a secret, you don't have sex, but you do reveal a lot about yourself when you do that. And you put yourself in an awkward and weak position. So I get what you're saying, Kate. I don't disagree. Maybe adding in and you give up a secret would be a cool little bite to that. But I like the third option, at least in theory.
I've taken it several times as a player to be like, oh, I don't have to do anything. I can just like act awkward, which I'm already an awkward teenager, so it's fine. It fits narratively. It just doesn't give anybody anything to work with.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't have as much bite as the other two. I
could totally work with someone acting awkward, but I understand.
I wasn't even aware of this personally because I haven't looked at the trick or treat rule set like in depth yet. I just heard that it's XP on a miss now, and that's all I needed to hear. Basically, I was like, "Sold! You've got my money." I mean,
No.
hey, I don't even have to be the one to bring it up.
well,
all right. So speaking of,
I don't want to gauge in any XP on a miss triumphalism here, but
yeah, you do.
What did you think? I know I do. What did you think? Like, what did you think of not doing highlight stats?
I don't love highlighting. It's just that I XP on a miss does very little for me. I at least prefer highlighting. But highlighting in Monsterhearts, I don't know, take it or leave it. XP on a miss, I think, works at least passably well in Dungeon World, because Dungeon World has a few other things that kind of propel your advancement along in the form of bonds or flags if you do the right thing and discard bonds.
Alignment and all that.
Yeah, exactly. Alignment and the end of session questions. Did you loot a memorable treasure, defeat a memorable enemy, that sort of thing. So the only source of XP in here is XP on a miss, strings, specifically in the tempt another character move, and occasional like moves on your own skin, your own play sheet, right? And the practical result of that is that I have 5 players, and the ones that have the most advancement have 5 XP after 2 1/3 or 2.5 sessions. And so a part, but I will say a small part of that is okay. We could use strings a little bit more, I guess, but most of that is just XP on a miss. Feels like it's just kind of, chugging along very slowly.
Yeah, I actually agree with you that it can be a little stingy seeming sometimes, because in Monster of the Week, for example, I find the character advancement in Monster of the Week to be excruciatingly slow now. Like it feels like it takes like 2 full sessions for people to get an advancement at this point with Monster of the Week, and I don't like it in that context. I think it works great in Dungeon World because you roll dice a lot more. Right. Yeah. And so maybe you have like more opportunities. It doesn't feel like such a stingy process in Dungeon World.
And doesn't Monster of the Week have those end of session questions too?
Yeah, you ask 4 questions, but the most you can get from it is 2, and that's not even guaranteed, right? Like it often you get 1. It just kind of depends on how the story goes or if you finish the mystery. I don't like it in Monster of the Week. I'll just say it. I don't. I kind of wish it was something else. Yeah.
So I think part of that is how many sessions do you plan on playing, right? If you're planning on playing a long chronicle of, say, 10 to 15 sessions of Monster of the Week or Monsterhearts 2, then that slower progression, okay, every other game you get a new move. I'm of the opinion sometimes, like, if you get a new move every single game session, like, have you had a chance to see how that affects your character?
I never take the new moves.
Leveling up again.
I always take the bonus. Like on Worldwide Wrestling, I've only taken stat bonuses. I'm just ramping up my look so I can keep getting more and more.
But you can only do that once in Monsterhearts 2. There's only one thing to select where you can take a +1 to a stat. Because I've already leveled up in one episode.
At least in Trick or Treat, there are only 6 advancements.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So if you did every session, 6 sessions, you're done.
Yeah.
I think slow advancement in Monster Hearts doesn't bother me so much because it's not like an action-oriented game for some reason. In like a more action-oriented game, I like a faster advancement because, it kind of feels like you need the advancement to survive or whatever, right? Or to like do well or to be cool and awesome. But I don't feel like the same narrative pressures exist in Monster Hearts, so I don't think it bugs me as much there. The idea of it anyway.
Sure. So. Well, Steve, we stomped all over you.
Heaven forbid we have something to say about the game we're talking about. Also, I noticed it only because we have one of the Second Skins playbooks in the mix, the Unicorn. And so the Unicorn is going through, character creation, and it's like add 1 to a stat or something along those lines, right? And the new Monsterhearts 2, your stat line is exactly the same. Every vampire has exactly the same, and every werewolf is exactly the same. Which seems like a weird choice. Because it's removing so little choice. But there was at least something.
Yeah, I actually struggled with that with my character because the Infernal is -1 hot, -1 cold, +2 volatile, and +1 dark. And I didn't have a chance to like zero out anything instead of just having I failed every social move my entire session. Every one of them.
Yeah.
Well, hey, Kate, good news, XP.
Yeah. I leveled. I advanced.
Cool. Steve, anything else you want to share about Monsterhearts 2?
No, I'm still really enjoying it, and I love Monsterhearts. I said I played 2 games before this. They were 2 of my favorite game sessions ever, and so I'm sure this is going to be a lot of fun.
Cool. Jason, I understand that you run games every once in a while that aren't Dungeon World. Would you like to tell us about it?
Periodically, yeah, it happens. In addition to Dungeon World and Story Games Sunday, I did Bluebeard's Bride and the Woodlands this month. And I was going to talk about Bluebeard's Bride because I feel like I have a lot to say about it, but the sessions are still a little too proximate to me right now. Like I don't really know what I want to say yet, and I'm still kind of like processing it a little bit. But I'll just say that we had a great time, particularly in the second session, because I've got better at running it, I think. But yeah, that's a game that needs to be discussed somewhere. I'm not sure where it's going to happen. Maybe on another episode, or maybe in a G+ post or something. But the Woodlands. So we've talked about that briefly before on the show, or maybe, I don't know, like 20 episodes back or something. It is Drew Medeiros' mouse guard game, like mouse guard with the serial numbers filed off, for lack of a better way of putting it. You play these animal rangers who are part of this group that goes out ranging and protects, other animals and, trailblazes and does all that kind of stuff, right? Anyway, we were playing in the mouse guard setting. Like, we actually were specifically playing in the mouse guard setting, whereas last time I played this, we had like beavers and stuff. Right? Yeah. Steve, I think you were in that game, Steve, right? Yes. We had a beaver in the last game, and the beaver just did everything because it was a fucking beaver, and everybody else was a mouse or a sparrow or whatever, right? So, so we did mouse guard, and okay, so we did a couple of things that I thought were really fun from a sort of storytelling perspective. So 2 things. The first thing we did, which was really fun. So all the mice have a cloak, right? They have a cloak that's a specific color. This is part of the mouse guard fiction. And the color of their cloak is chosen by their mentor, and it reflects something about their past or about their character or just, or something that they experienced in their training, right? Well, I made the decision at the top of the series, it was a 3-session series, to say, hey guys, I don't actually want to know what color your cloak is yet. We're going to reveal your cloak colors throughout this series at dramatically appropriate moments. And that worked really great. It was a really, really fun thing because essentially the players got to live in the characters a little bit, and they got to like tie their burgeoning fiction about their character like into their cloak color. And at these really like key moments, they would like say, okay, I want to reveal my cloak color now, it was pretty neat. So for example, David's character, he was a patrol captain, and he was a young patrol captain. And so he kept playing his character as if he was like, he had something to prove, he would always like, his history was he would take the most dangerous missions. He would always be on point. He was always trying to prove himself to the more grizzled veteran mice. Like he was really, really into his, David played him like just like this like real go-getter, this person who like took on challenges like just because he could, because he had to prove something. And so when he revealed his cloak color, he revealed that his cloak was perfectly white. And we were all like, well, that seems weird to have a perfectly white cloak out in the forest when you're trying to hide from like predator animals and stuff. But then we were like, oh, now we know why your cloak is perfect. It makes sense because you like, you want to show like what a badass you are. You want to show like how you run into danger, right? So, that was kind of a cool moment. And then another character, we had a Tenderpaw, which is like a recruit in the game. Like they haven't earned their cloak yet. And the Tenderpaw character, she was kind of fucking everything up. Like she just, rolls were bad and like things were going poorly. And it became kind of part of the story arc was like, this character having a lot of like insecurity about their performance to that point. And another character, he had a pale blue cloak that was ostensibly chosen for him because it reminded him reminded his mentor of like the city he was from. He was from like an ocean, side city or whatever. But when he chose to reveal his cloak color, he explained that in fact, he was chosen that pale blue color because when he was in training, he made a mistake that got his patrol caught in a snowstorm and they all froze to death, everybody but him. And so the pale blue cloak represented like that big failure of his, right? And how he, as a sort of reminder, like of like how he screwed up and how he should not make mistakes like that again. And it kind of tied in nicely into a scene where he kind of revealed that to this recruit character and they kind of bonded on that point, So this revealing of cloak colors was a really, really neat narrative device. So if you want to play Mouse Guard in the Woodlands, I recommend it. The other thing we did, which was pretty cool, was every time the patrol got to a brand new city, David had this idea where he was going to basically find the patrol logbook in every city and make notes in the logbook about, the things they'd encountered on the road. He would make notes about all the patrol members' performances and things like that, so that later on when they're going through the books to make commendations or whatever, they'd refer to that. And also to kind of learn a little bit about what was on the road ahead, right? From other patrols who had put things in the logbook. And that was all triggered by the game's equivalent of a Discern Realities. I can't remember what it's called, but this sort of move that lets you investigate things, right? Anyway, these little logbook scenes became really great because essentially it was almost like a prize, where we all got to sit and have David note for each character, what he thought, how he thought they did, and kind of recap what they had done on the journey. And it even became this sort of interesting, a slight shade throwing exercise, the way David phrased things and the wording he used, and everybody was kind of into that. And then also we started to develop this ongoing mythology from town to town that was strictly coming out of the logbooks, focused around this trickster fox that was supposedly in the area.
Nice.
So yeah, it was we just had some really neat little touches like that throughout the series that became kind of a little rituals that we injected into the game that just really added a lot to it. So that's all I want to say.
That's really cool. All right. Well, thanks, Jason. Kate.
Hi.
I know you've played a bevy of games and you had a heck of a time figuring out which one to talk about.
I did. I think mostly as a group, we kind of decided let's talk about Shooting the Moon because it's been an intense week, so let's talk about something that's not intense. Shooting the Moon is a romance-based RPG by Emily Caraboss. It's part of her romance trilogy. And in this game, there's a beloved and two suitors, and the suitors are competing for the affection of the beloved. Now, that being said, we decided to play it in an urban fantasy setting that was very dark and grim, and it was a horrible, soul-ripping story, and it was very depressing and wonderful. Because apparently I always just want to play Monsterhearts. The mechanics, though, are really interesting because you kind of have to tag each other. So there's the suitor and the beloved are in one scene, and the other suitor then plays the GM and kind of throws crap at them to deal with after they've had an intimate, touching moment. And when you're doing that, you have to look at the beloved sheet and be like, oh, I think right now you are cool as hell, and you should totally stand up to this person because you look fashionable or something. You can tag each other, and you get more dice for taking suggestions from each other. So it really encourages teamwork and stuff like that. But the interesting thing that I found is no matter what you're doing, there's no guarantee that you will end up with the beloved. I was winning by a long shot, and then I just rolled really crappily, as is my style. And I did not end up with the beloved. The beloved ended up the villain, and we never fell in love with anybody. So...
Did you fail at Shoot the Moon, quick Kate? Is that what you're saying?
I thought so. I thought we had really sucked at Shoot the Moon, and I was like, oh, that wasn't the happy romantic experience I was expecting. And then I did a big blog post about it, and Emily Caraboss was like, Kate, that sounds like a fantastic game. I'm so glad you enjoyed it. And I was like, oh, maybe I did it right. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. But it was really cool, and I really want to play more. There's a lot of hacks of that. So we played the original in hopes that we could grok it enough to then move on to all the hacks. And I'm really excited to play it again, but I found out I suck at romantic role-playing. I can do sexy and I can do flirty, but genuine romance, I'm nope. I am stoic.
Interesting. That's an interesting discovery?
Yeah, it was surprising. I'm really awkward about romance in real life, so that translated really nicely.
Cool.
Speaking of romance trilogy hacks, there is a Gauntlet podcast inspired hack of, I can't remember which game it hacks, but it's the one that's called In the Arms of the Pack about werewolves.
Yeah, we were going to play that one actually because of the Gauntlet
awesome.
And everything. They're like, we should play Shooting the Moon first and get it, and then move on to In the Arms of the Pack. So it's on the list.
That's the second one, right? Of the trilogy.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Breaking the Ice, Shooting the Moon, and Under My Skin. I think.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I want to play that too.
Cool. Yeah. Romancing the romance trilogy is the next episode of Dr. Tom the Frog Show interview with Emily Caraboss. That'll be out by the time
this
episode comes out.
Is that with Dr. Tom's new desk?
It is with Dr. Tom's new desk.
So
oh my
fancy.
goodness.
Paid for by our
That desk is
generous
so
patrons.
cool. Yes, and created by one of our Gauntlet community members, Fowler. Thank you so much.
I haven't actually seen it. You should send me a picture. I want to see what it looks like.
Oh, well, maybe you should just watch the video.
Yeah, that's true, too.
Was it on the? It was on the episode with Strix, right?
No, I don't think so.
It was
no?
not.
Damn.
It makes its debut in the episode with ECB.
Notorious ECB.
So excited.
Yep.
I want to be here when I grow up.
Cool. Kate, anything else you'd like to share about Shooting the Moon?
Go play it. Buy that book. It's great.
Indeed. All right. I'm going to talk about my most recent Saturday morning cartoons 4-shot. It was going to be a Primetime Adventures series, and it just didn't pan out.
It's a curse. We're never ever going to get a series of Primetime Adventures
PTA,
off the ground of the Gauntlet.
Yeah,
it's not going to happen.
I'm going to have to go off the book to make it happen.
It is. I'm not even kidding. That was Rich. That was probably the 5th time some entity of the Gauntlet has tried to run Primetime Adventures and it's fallen off the calendar. It's just doomed.
I would have played it if it wasn't Saturday morning because I work every day.
Right. I think PTA is a kind of a hard game for the way we organize games. I think it's kind of a tricky game.
It is, and I layered on some others. Yeah. Hey, let's talk about what did make. So I contacted the group that had signed up because what the deal was PTA, right? You really need a consistent group.
Right, yeah.
And I had people who signed up, but one person could only make the 1st and the 5th, and one person could make the first 2, but none after. And that really just kind of wasn't going to work. So I flipped it to Apocalypse World because Apocalypse World. So I wanted to try something different, right? Because I just recently ran Apocalypse World a couple months ago for Saturday morning cartoons. And so I sat down with the group and I said, hey guys, I'm interested in the extended playbooks. And I said, okay, scared that someone was going to pick the show. They didn't. Someone picked the news, and then of the core 3 that were there for all the game sessions, it was the news, a Skinner, and a hard holder. And one of the things I said was, guys, a lot of times when I'm playing Apocalypse World, the default is that we go medieval, right? It's medieval with guns. It's basically what Apocalypse World is if you don't try to not make it that. So I said, I really don't want that. And so with that in mind, I said, hey, what if we have a soft apocalypse, right? It was an apocalypse, but there are pockets of electricity. There are pockets of some sense of civilization. So we set it in Hong Kong, and that was fun because then I could just basically go through all the Hong Kong movies that I've seen and find all the coolest actors. And that's who I cast as NPCs, which was great. Chow Yun-Fat was this character named Mac-10, who was named Mac-10 because he had a Mac-10. He had one clip, and he knew the moment he pulled that trigger, he had no more bullets for his Mac-10. 5 sessions,
an existential crisis or something.
Yeah. People were getting, it was Chekhov's Mac-10. I loved it. You like that, Lowell? That
was good.
So the news is a really interesting playbook, and it's kind of like The Chosen, that it kind of takes over the game for an aspect, because every time you start off the session, you roll dice and you say, hey, MC, what's going on with this guy? I'm going to tell everyone. What's going on with this girl? I'm going to tell everyone. And it really kicks things into motion. It was exciting. It was really interesting, but it's scary, right? Because as an MC, better have some stuff planned.
Yeah, it sounds like it kind of gets you going at 60 really fast, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it does. So we didn't have a heavy hitter playbook. We didn't have a gunlugger, didn't have a chopper, didn't have a faceless. And that really changed how people interacted with the world. The fact that it wasn't all medieval. There was violence. There was threat of violence. There were fights, but a lot of them happened off screen. It was almost like a Greek play, right? It was the chorus would say, oh, there was this battle between so-and-so gang that the hard holder sent out and these other people, or there's the edge. They come up to the edge of a big fight, but the hard holder's trying to talk people out of the Skinners using their powers of persuasion and the like to talk people into other choices. And that was really fun to watch. It was not a kind of Apocalypse World game that I've played in quite a while. And there were conflicts, there were problems, there was double dealing, there were people cheating on each other, and all the things that you would want in a dramatic game. It just didn't have to be Big Johnny with his huge mortar sticking in somebody's mouth and whoa, he blew people away, you know. So I really enjoyed it. And it was neat seeing a different mix of playbooks by taking a couple different choices of the setting and the mix of characters and seeing what results when you still follow the agendas, the principles, the moves.
Well, so question, Rich. It sounds like you just let them choose whatever they wanted from the playbooks. Like, did you like limit the playbook selection in the beginning in any way, or it was just like...
No, if I had, I probably wouldn't have said extended playbooks.
Okay, all right, got it.
They make me nervous.
Well, the reason why I say that is because I think one of the things that maybe goes sometimes a little underestimated or whatever in terms of like, you know, something you can do as the MC of a PBTA game to like really control the nature of the story, or to at least give it like the character that you kind of, if you have like a certain vision for like what the style of story will be. I think playbook selection is a big one, right? Like it's a great tool to use. Like I do it for certain games. I'm really restrictive on playbook selection. Like Monster of the Week, I choose very, very specific playbooks that the players can use because I want a certain feeling. And so I'd be interested to know if like it sounds like if maybe you kept the Gunlugger and some of the other, like the Faceless, some of those out, that you could, just by dint of doing that, it sounds like you're saying like it becomes just a more like social drama or a more social kind of game as opposed to a solve problems with violence.
Yeah,
okay?
It does. It's kind of, yeah, exactly. It reminds me of the Kmart Monsterhearts type setup where I chose the skins. I think you have a lot of power there. We backed into it. I said, What do you guys want? Because I was trying to be conciliatory. Hey, I'm not running Primetime Adventures, and that's what you originally signed up with. So let's play Apocalypse World. You tell me what you want to play. And that's how we ended up.
Kate, do you do that when you run PBTA games? Do you like limit the playbook selection?
It depends on if I'm doing a one-shot or a campaign. So if I'm doing a campaign, then they get whatever they want. In a one-shot, especially like Urban Shadows or Monsterhearts, I will select, if I have 5 players, I will select 5 playbooks, and I will already fill out their strengths for them. I will point them at each other in a serious way.
Oh, wow.
And they will hit the table running.
Interesting.
Well, just because in a one-shot, it takes
saves a lot of time.
much time. Yeah, exactly.
That makes
so much
sense.
time, especially
totally
like Urban Shadows to answer. Yeah. So I learned that from Drew, though. Drew Medeiros. He came to Breakout with like a perfectly plotted Urban Shadows game. And I was like, oh.
Nice.
Well, that's clever.
Well, Lowell, didn't you say that Marissa did something like that when she ran her one-shots of Urban Shadows?
She limited the playbooks, but because I think it was as much a demo as it was anything, she went through and did the whole, here are your characters, let's answer the questions, let's build the stuff up. And we did a break at the middle, and then she clearly had a couple of set pieces in her quiver, and she put those in play.
This is something that community members ask us about constantly, like, or I get this question a lot anyway, just like on side channels and stuff, which is, how do you prep for a one shot, right? Like, I feel like there's a valid conversation there that people would like to hear, you know, like how do you make this one shot sing, and how do you experience enough of the game and tell, like, you know, have something of a story arc in a one shot. So but that's super interesting, Kate. I like that.
Very cool. Very cool. Last thing I wanted to say is that we had a 4th PC each time, and every time it was someone new, and then
nice.
The last one, 2 of the...
Was that on purpose? Was that on purpose, or just like, I mean, how'd that work out?
It was just the way it panned out, but it was so great because it was kind of like the guest starring spot of a sitcom, like guest starring the child thing, and it worked out relatively well because we would keep kind of showing off screen that those characters still existed within the fiction, and that. Did
you kind of make them the focus of the session, or how'd you fiddle with that?
Yes, absolutely. Mick came in, he played a battle babe, he came up with this NPC that he was running from, and then that was all I needed. That was like the major through point. That was the A plot for the game.
Nice.
And it was pretty spectacular. So yeah, I tried to highlight those people, but then the B plots were always the 3 core and what they were trying to achieve, and we would keep looping them in. Like we would come in, we would do HX. Okay, what HX do you have left that you can give to the brainer, and what do you have here? So I feel like they worked very hard to integrate. I mean, you had Yoshi, right? I had Yoshi in the group.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't have to work too hard because Yoshi's
I've heard nothing but good stuff about that AW game. Everybody talks about how great that was. So,
and Yoshi's write-ups are really solid. They're
he just
very
posted those. Yeah. I just saw those somewhere. Maybe it was Gauntlet. I don't know, but I saw. Yeah.
He posted the Gauntlet. He's got a collection. I think he's trying really hard to write up the games that he's playing this year to reflect more and look at his tendencies. He discovered something.
People. I'm like, you guys need to do play reports, you goddamn sessions. Like, people want to hear it. People want to hear how the games go. Like, tell them. So, since we only meet once a month now, let's talk about our games.
What was interesting is because he's focusing on this, Yoshi is doing the reflections and thinking. He had created the hard holder, and he wanted that hard holder, he used the they pronoun, he wanted them to be very pragmatic. But when I put in front of Yoshi's character, okay, this is a bad thing that's happening, it will be very pragmatic for you to make this choice. Are you going to leave this NPC out to dry? And he made the choice with his heart, and it was neat because he didn't know he was going to do that until he felt compelled to go the way of the heart. It was fun.
I love stuff like that.
I do too, especially when you make someone realize something about their character or maybe themselves.
Emotional play? What?
Yeah, I know, right?
Whatever. Okay, yeah, it's emotional play's good stuff. Lowell, I understand that you have tried the 3rd edition of Chill.
Yeah.
Chill.
So a lot of this has been on what is available as quick starts. And so I saw the Chill 3rd edition quick start because it came out like a year ago. And I'd never played Chill. You know, it's had multiple editions. It was one from Pacesetter back in 84 and another one from Mayfair in 91. And for a lot of people, Chill's their first introduction to horror RPGs rather than Call of Cthulhu. But I never played it. It's got the idea of an organization that you all belong to that gives you backing. And so that's more of a superstructure than you get in Call of Cthulhu or anything like that. And there's the unknown is sort of all the supernatural forces have a capital T, capital U, unknown thing. So they're all kind of linked together. So as I went in, I was trying to think, okay, what does Chill bring into the table? What is it doing? You know, a lot of people love it. So I had that in the back of my mind. It's pretty trad. It's percentile rolls under a skill, but then you like to see if you rolled under half your skill. And if you do, then you get a high level of success. But if you roll doubles, you get colossal success. But if you fail and roll doubles, you get, colossal failure. And it's got this weird set of mechanics that, I don't know, kind of bug me. It's got a lot of little bits on the character sheet that seem like they might be aiming towards more indie stuff, but then in practice, they don't. So the actual sort of tech of the game is just okay, except for out on the table, you have these tokens. And the tokens are either start neutral, but they're either light or dark. And when players want to get like a fate point thing, like a reroll or, a bump up on a skill, or sometimes for using their powers, they have to turn those tokens dark. So there's a limit on those because they can't, once they're all dark, you can't turn more dark. You can also use it to heal damage and stuff. And that's a shared resource for the group. And then the GM to do things to like activate bad guy powers and do stuff has to flip those to the light side, so that the players can then flip them back. In theory, it's really interesting. We saw something like that with Coriolis, where you've got a GM economy coming out that's kind of on the table as a threat. In practice, it felt a little clunky, partially because we're doing it online. We had it in a document. And also because, some of the powers people had cost a bunch of those tokens and they weren't really effective. But it's an interesting idea. And certainly at the end, a lot of players pointed to that as something interesting that they thought had potential.
Is that their version of a tension mechanic?
I don't think so. I think it's supposed to prevent the influence of the supernatural in there. They don't really justify it, at least in the quick start, for anything beyond things are either light or they're dark, and here's what's going on with it.
Okay, because I'm friends with Jonathan Lavallee, who's one of the writers. And he said, when he was trying to sell Chill to me, he was like, no, you can use these for tension and you can flip them over and they're all dark. And then that means the GM has more power to do cool things. And I tend to find horror games need a tension mechanic if they're successful horror games. So this sounds like their version of the GM's going to do something scary.
Yeah, and I think that had that been more emphasized in the quick start, like they had gone, okay, look at this. This is really central to what we're doing. I might have felt like the game was selling itself better, because as it was, it didn't quite work. Part of it is the scenario that we played. It has some really good stuff. It has some great moments. A couple of really scary things that happen that you can pull out on the table, and then you flip some of the tokens dark, and that's really good. But then there's some really weird gaps in the writing of it, because it's a very trad style. And I'll give you the example. When you go and look at something, okay, here's a house. We have to go investigate the house. Okay. There's a chart, and you roll to see what your level of success is, and here's the information you get. So that's just not the way I run anymore. And it really bugged me, because I was like, okay, this feels like a very artificial way of doling it out. And I was trying to play by the game system, so it felt weird. I had a lot of problems. This scenario assumes that the players are going to go out and do a bunch of research. And they kind of have to, because the bad guy can't be hurt. They don't know this. They have to figure out that there are a couple of substances that can hurt this evil witch woman. But the threat is that a child has been kidnapped. And the players are like, okay, we're not going to go do running any red herrings. We're not going to go anything. We're just going to be very aggressive and look in the most obvious places. And the way the scenario is set up, that can get them right into the face of the bad guy without having any kind of supporting information. It's very oddly structured. I think it's one of those games, and this is a little bit like Feng Shui, too, which I ran just before that. I had a great time. I enjoyed playing it. I enjoyed running it. John Alexander had a great death scene at the end, sacrificing himself to let the others get away. It was super fun, but it was absolutely that it was those players that made those sessions good versus the game itself making that good.
Well, it sounds like it's just like it might just be like a play style thing, right? I mean, like, like I've played Chill. I bought it when I was a kid because I liked the cover art on the second edition Chill book, which is like amazing. Mm-hmm. It's so good.
Yeah, it is really good. It had a really good GM screen too.
It's really good. Yeah. It's super,
Bill Stankiewicz style.
Yeah, it was super sharp. But I was curious about if it was going to be like so traditional. Like I was, that's the thing I wasn't sure about Chill 3E. And yeah, so anyway, sorry. It sounds like it was just like a play style thing. Yeah.
There's also the thing that all the players have psychic powers. This is like a thing. All of
them?
Members of this organization all have psychic powers.
It's like Psychic Detective, Steve. that game where you automatically, that's over in 10 minutes because you're all psychic detectives.
But their powers, and like, I made a cheat sheet for the rules, and the cheat sheet was about a page long. For some of these players, that was as long as their rules for the psychics that they had. And like all kinds of exceptions and all kinds of rolls and all kinds of costs. And then the powers actually kind of sucked. It was a very weird thing. I think that's a selling point, is that everybody has these powers, but they've invested a lot of time in writing a lot of rules for them that they don't need.
Interesting.
Yeah. I also talked to Matt McFarland and Michelle Lyons McFarland a lot. So I know a lot of people on the Chill team. I'm going to just put that out there. I might be a little biased. And I know they struggled a lot with trying to keep the traditional feel of Chill, but also try to bring in a lot of indie stuff, because they're all into the indie scene.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, Jonathan Lavallee, I mean, he's written us a samurai Powered by the Apocalypse game for Codex. Like, that's coming out in like 2 or 3 months. Like
I know, I've seen it.
Like, I know he knows indie, right? Like, I mean,
he's super indie. He's super indie.
Yeah. So that's what was kind of surprising.
Really, yeah, they're all really indie writers, but they're also trying to bring along that trad crowd with them.
Yeah.
So
maybe the full text, will be like, it'll be a little bit more clear.
Okay, well, the opening text, though, there's an opening comic panel in the Chill book, and the main protagonist is a trans person. They're adding really inclusive content, but they have to try to keep what makes Chill, I guess.
Yeah, no, and I think that's
it.
I think you're absolutely right. It feels like it is trying to serve two masters, that it wants to have some of these indie mechanics, but it's still trying to be to the people who would remember Chill. The older players and stuff.
It's something that you see with Kickstarters lately. Like, I haven't read 7th Sea yet, but didn't 7th Sea catch a lot of flack from like longtime fans of 7th Sea? Like, weren't they kind of unhappy with a lot of the direction that it went,
Yeah. I know they hated the hot gay pirates.
Right, well, there's that part of it too, yeah. I wasn't sure what the point of contention was. I just remember seeing on G Plus a lot of chatter like, this is not the book I bought, like they were,
Well, I'll say that's a really good thing to look at. It's a really good comparison to something like, I also mentioned Feng Shui 2. And Feng Shui 2, it looks so cool. It looks so neat. It looks like it's got all these streamlined stuff, but they kept all of these really crunchy core mechanics from the first edition. Ugh. I thought they would like bring it up to a modern sensibility, but there's all these things that kind of drag it back down to being leaden. But when I thought about it, they really couldn't change that. And that may be the case with Chill. I think that there's probably a lot of cool indie stuff that's going in there, and that might bring it over, those ideas over to a trad crowd. But at least coming in from my perspective, it really bumped to get up against the way that I ran. Whereas 7th Sea goes, screw the past mechanics. This is going to be light. It's going to be fast. We're changing the world. Look at all this cool stuff. We're doing what we want. It's going to look good. We're going to have, our characters, our NPCs are going to be old, young, ugly, fat, handsome, gay, trans. It's so good. And that's a game that's an old game that they went, this is how it looks in the new world.
I feel like there's just two conversations there. Like, I mean, I'm just thinking strictly of like mechanics in terms of like the weird tension, like with some of these like revival Kickstarters. I haven't backed any of them because I feel like Numenera and certain other games like that started to come out a few years ago that started to like thread this needle between like more narrative focused gaming and like with like some trad elements. And I found them unsatisfying. But knowing the team that's on Chill, it's kind of like, it does make me want to see the full text. Yeah, I know. Yeah, like it makes me want to see the full text because the samurai thing is really cool, It's like really indie. It's really PBTA. So it's like, I know it's almost like you're serving two masters, Like, and I just don't, it's just, it doesn't appeal to me personally, but.
I will say Sherry knows me better than anybody, and she said, it's probably much better than you think, Lowell, because it's just your style hitting against it. Yeah. And I was like, well, yes, but, and she's like, so, yeah.
We've run it a lot in Toronto because we always run a monthly, like mini-con, like a one-day mini-con type thing. And but Jonathan's running it, and Jonathan is like a rockstar GM, but everyone walks away from that table going, yes, this is awesome. So it's doing something right. I haven't played it, but.
I've played Champions with a Rockstar GM, and it doesn't feel crunchy, and that's the crunchiest.
GM matters.
Yeah, thank you. I was just about to steal your burning wheel example, Kate. Like Kate,
Luke Crane, the Rockstar.
Kate illuminated us all on Slack, like that. When Luke runs that at cons, he like stands up on the table and shit, and like is just so energetic. Like you of course think that game's amazing, right? If you know nothing else about it. Yeah. So yeah.
And then you buy it, and you're like, wait, what?
Well, Judge Perlman.
Exactly right. I know. It's like, I'm 500 pages in, and we're still on rules. Yeah.
How many appendices are there?
Yeah. Judd ran a year-long Burning Wheel game for me, and he made it seem amazingly fluid and. I mean, just listen to the guy run Sorcerer. It's just
good. Yeah, it's really good. There is like a sort of, there's the GM aspect, I guess. Yeah. I'm kind of with you, Lowell. I feel like maybe it would not match with my play style either, though. I think I would probably, I'm not sure I'd want to make the investment to make it work at my table, but
I really had to hear from Kate that it does work, that there are contexts, there are people that are getting it that like it. So that makes me happy.
That might make a big difference too. You're just running off the quick start, right? So that's, one thing I think is always, to me, that's always a big caveat on these games,
I am going to play it in March because Matt and Michelle are coming to Breakout, and I was promised a session of Chill, so I will report back.
Oh, cool. Please do. Thank you.
Awesome. Cool. Well, that brings us to the end of our game lineup. Thank you, everybody. Let's go ahead and hop over to hear about our sponsor.
This episode of the Gauntlet Podcast is being sponsored by our friends at Nocturnal Media. So right now, listeners, Nocturnal is in the middle of a Kickstarter campaign for a game called Cold Shadows. Cold Shadows is a tabletop role-playing game built on the rule set Blood and Honor by John Wick, as well as World of Dew by Werner Wonderworks. Cold Shadows is a narrative tabletop role-playing game where the rules are focused on telling a dynamic, personal, and compelling story. The game is set in a taut world of espionage, betrayal, and drama, inspired by the great spy stories of authors such as Jean Le Carré and Robert Ludlum. Cold Shadows is written to evoke the feeling of the Cold War era of spies, both in modern and a historical context. The game can easily be used to tell espionage stories in any 20th and 21st century time frame. I've taken a look at the Kickstarter. It looks great. I've backed it. I'm pretty excited where this game is going because I can't think of too many 20th century Jean Le Carré style spy games that have a narrative focus. So this is pretty cool. If that sounds interesting to you, go take a look at that Kickstarter. We will have a link in the notes. And thanks again to Nocturnal for supporting us.
It's giving me life.
What was that?
That was his attempt to do my giving me life.
It's giving me life. It's Jason's way.
I'm uncomfortable with this Jason and Rich
Jason
body
style.
swap here.
This is body swaps,
Okay.
yeah. With Jason, with me and Jason. I just said Jason. With Rich and I doing bad impressions of each other, yeah.
It's the best. Kate, what's giving you life?
Oh, that's like a loaded question lately.
God, isn't that true? Whew.
Right? Like how striving so hard to like hold on to hope and love and things this week. But so what's giving me life? Recently, you might have heard there was like this women's march in Washington. It was also all over the world.
Wait, what?
Even
This Monsterhearts? My mind is being blown all night.
I know.
What are these things?
But there was even marchers in Antarctica. Because there was like an expedition down there, so all 7 continents had people marching,
Nice.
which is kind of cool. And there was a lot of like stuff called about the women's march that is totally legitimate about trans inclusivity and cis sexism and all that kind of stuff. But I was watching it at work because I had to work, and there was this one speaker who came on and said, "When it gets harder to love, we love harder." And I've been really trying to hold on to that since that march and live my life with that in mind, because it's been so hard lately to just like look at what's happening and be like, yeah, I'm gonna love the shit out of people today. But I'm trying really hard, so that's kind of what's keeping me alive.
It's literally giving you life. Is that what's going on?
There has to be something, right?
Yeah.
Jason, you have something similar? What's giving you life?
I do. Yeah, I'll go next. I was also very heartened by the Women's March. It was the Women's March was the first day since the election that I have felt something along the lines of like comfort, or just like I allowed myself to feel like things might be okay, you know? But no, I was going to just to piggyback on that. So this Trump executive order thing came down about like banning certain types of immigrants from coming into the country, and particularly the refugees from Syria. And, I heard about it really, really early in the morning. And, I'm a constitutional lawyer. And so like I was just livid, just really, really upset. And it was so great to see all of the turnout, all the protests at the airports, like across the country. Amazing. Like it was just so amazing. And it made me like I think we're not going to be okay the next 4 years, but at least like it seems like everybody's kind of ready to push back, and that felt good. So it's given me life.
Cool. Thank you. Mine's a lot more frivolous. What's giving me life is Monsterhearts 2. I started a play-by-post of Monsterhearts 2 using the Trick or Treat, and I invited a couple of really good gamers, Jin and Tara, and I went over to my wife, and she tried play-by-post once, and she posted once, and then she walked over to me and said, "Okay, now what do I do?" And I said, "Well, we wait for maybe up to a day." And she really didn't like that answer. But Jin and Tara are both really pretty responsive, and they're also both excellent writers and players. So I thought, maybe like an all-girl group, like they'll be very welcoming and inclusive, and my wife will be kind of walked into it. Now we're like week and a half, 2 weeks in. We've gone through several scenes, and there are moments where I'm sitting in the office, and she comes in. "Hey, I just want to let you know I posted." She'll come in. "Hey, I was thinking about the fairy kingdom for my fae. Like, what do you think about this?" She'll come in later. "Hey, I posted again, just so you know." So It is awesome. It is awesome. It is like all the play-by-post fun that I want, and we get to have these long, drawn-out conversations that reminds me of when we were dating and playing Vampire the Masquerade, and she just really wanted to talk about this little scene with her character. So it's something we have had that level of dedication to a game in a while, because normally we will play, one shots. We're playing Dungeon World where you start talking about it, and then my son's got to jump in, and then all of a sudden he's talking about, he says when he casts a spell with his wizard that he hawks a loogie. That's how he casts a spell. So, different kind of conversation.
Slightly different conversation.
Yeah, different kind of conversation. So that's super exciting for me.
Mommy and Daddy
really
RPG time is good, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Lowell, what's giving you life?
So mine is a wife thing as well, because when I'm not running for Sherry, pretty much we're playing video games together, which means one of us is playing and the other one is watching. And after 700 hours in Xenoblade Chronicles, Sherry finally...
Jesus.
700?
Kid you not.
Oh my God.
I only put 550 hours in.
Oh my God.
She finally got... Dragon Quest Builders is the thing that finally broke her away from that. It's Minecraft, but with an RPG story and the Dragon Quest stuff, and it's very fun. Because she likes building things, and she got to a point like 3 levels in where she got stuck on something, and so we're like, well, let's go look and see if there's a YouTube video. And so we started watching this channel called Miss Multiconsole, and it's clearly this young British woman, and she records all her games. She plays like World of Final Fantasy, and she plays Dragon Quest Builders, and she didn't give us any help, but her episodes are like 20 minutes long, and she's manic. So she's running around and we're like, no, go and get your food. You got to go build that. We're screaming at the television as she's running and doing the dumbest things. And she's also young, so she mispronounces everything, but it's so cute and so funny. I don't know why this is what we do at dinner time now, is we watch a couple episodes of that. And it's pretty relaxing.
Very cool. Thank you, Lowell. Finish this up, Steve. What is giving you life?
All right. So what's shining a little light in my life these days is Daniel Fowler, who I believe you mentioned built Dr. Tom the Frog desk. You mentioned that earlier, and he gets periodic mentions on Discern Realities. He is in my Monsterhearts game, and every time he comes over, he brings some insane thing that he has 3D printed. And so I'm going to pull a couple of things up and show them to you guys.
Great for radio.
Great radio.
Terrible podcasting. Yeah. Terrible podcasting.
Yes.
I apologize. But so first he brought over, since we use the X card, he bought this lovely little, try and get some shadows involved here.
Wow.
3D printed.
Low relief X
That
card.
looks
Nice
solid.
and sturdy X card.
Wow.
It is so sturdy that he says, in order to test the printing process, he will print one of these out and then try to break it. And then when he fails, he'll bring it over. So that's one thing. It's cool, but it's nice and simple, right?
So if you throw the X card like the Hulk, like you're just super angry, you're like, ah!
Throw it at Pathfinder people.
Smash. I heard that Pathfinder shade, Kate. I heard that.
What? No.
So this most recent time, he brought over a dice cup. And let me show you a thing or two. Again, terrible podcasting. I'm so sorry, listeners. But here, do you see this sort of almost flower-looking or sun-looking orifice?
I really want to see Super Mario drop into that and go to another world.
Right, because watch what happens here.
Whoa! Oh my God! Whoa!
Oh my God. Huh.
It's got a little
So he's hitting a button and the dice cup closes into itself. That is so cool.
Like a little futuristic,
like a little
portal thing. Yeah.
Exactly, like a sphincter porthole thing. It's gorgeous. He 3D printed this. There was some assembly he had to do, but it's all just 3D printing and, the file and Fowler.
Wow.
It's really great.
On the Slack, he's been.
Where do I get a Fowler?
Yeah, I know, right? On the Slack, he's been sharing pictures of the in progress wrestling belt that he's doing with his metalworking, and it's got the gauntlet on it. And, like, it looks great.
Yeah.
Like, it's really cool. Yeah.
Oh, right. This most recent time, he brought over a like. Plink, what do you, like a dice tower with the
dice tower,
the
yeah.
Plinko dice tower, yeah.
Light up dice tower. Yeah.
I think it's still sort of prototype, but it's functional and it's it's really amazing. Also, he's playing a ghost in the Monsterhearts game, and we're playing the game set in the 80s, but the ghost died like 25 years ago, and so he's basically like a greaser kind of super cool Fonzie type of dude, right? And so Fowler gets bonus points for just being a super cool dude in the Monsterhearts game. Like this last session, he ghosted into the trunk of a cop car. And then when leaving the cop car, he's like, I'm a ghost, whatever. I just fall out the bottom of it. And this happens in a crowded parking lot. So there are witnesses, and he falls out the bottom of a cop car and somebody goes, ah! And he just pops up and gives him a thumbs up and walks away.
That's great.
Nice.
Yeah. So Fowler is giving my life. Good job, Daniel.
Yeah. Very, very cool. Okay, awesome. That brings us to a close. Lowell, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Rich.
And Lowell, you can find him at Age of Ravens blog, where he blogs about games. Kate, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You can find Kate at bluestockings.ca, where she blogs about games as well. Steve, thank you.
You are very welcome. Thank you.
And Steve is the man of mystery. You can't find him anywhere. And last but not least, we have Jason. Jason, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Sorry, I had to impersonate Lowell now. Hey, I want to plug Codex real quick. I can be found on G+. You guys know where I'm at. When this goes up, the new Codex Love, is out. It features a couple of Dungeon World things, which are pretty cool. One by Ray Otis called Bogville, about peace, free love, frog folk. It has a Dungeon World thing about this god of love and pestilence, because love is like the real infection, right? And then it also features a really, really fun sort of advanced play Lady Blackbird thing by our own Rich Rogers. So,
yay!
Exciting!
Listeners, go check that out if you're on the Patreon. If not, go join the Patreon.
You can also follow us on Twitter at Gauntlet RPG. You can head to our website, gauntlet-or-RPG. Don't write hyphen or dash, please. Put gauntlet and then dash and then RPG.com. And please find us on G+, where the Gauntlet community and the Gauntlet Hangouts community can be found. Thanks, everybody, for listening, and have a good gaming. Wasn't going to work. So I flipped it to Apocalypse World, because Apocalypse World, which, by the way, I've got my book, and a lot of people are getting their books.
I got mine.
It's nice.
Not in Canada.
I'm really interested in finding out the stats for a skiller, though. That playbook looks really interesting, but it's only mentioned on the back cover. So. Not sure about the skiller. Hopefully it has a lot of skills.
Oh, editing. Womp womp.